This is where passion meets positivity and optimism. In a world where bad news abounds, You Are Solid Gold with Michele Lau celebrates the good in our lives and the beauty in the hidden gems around us. Welcome to You Are Solid Gold. Here she is, international television host and QVC jewelry expert, Michele Lau.
Hi, everybody, and welcome into You Are Solid Gold with Michele Lau. I happen to be Michele Lau. One of the things that I like best about doing a podcast and a YouTube channel is that I can delve into some things that, real people are dealing with, on a real-time basis. A few weeks ago, you had an opportunity to meet my friend Mindy, whose mother was recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and we talked a lot about that. You met my friend Tracy Edwards, who, is dealing with MS in her real life. But oftentimes, the people around us are struggling with things, and we have no idea. And that was the case when I met my friend Michelle Fallon. By the end of this show, you're going to learn some things about post-traumatic stress disorder. And June is post-traumatic stress disorder month. So I feel like it's just a great time for Michelle to tell her story. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Michelle. Nice.
Can you believe that we have known each other for 4 years?
Oh my God, that's crazy. I can't believe it's been, it feels longer.
Yeah. Hey, no, it does though, in a lot of ways. It does. You're right. You're right. And we always have a lot of fun together. You've always been a great friend. You've always been a great neighbor. And one of the things I liked about you from the very beginning is how open you are as a person. You're like me, and what you see is what you get. And if you don't like it, just go ahead and move along, Barbara. You know what I mean? Right. So I'm so happy to have you here. But I never would have guessed that you were dealing with this. The only way it ever came up between the two of us is she could see that I was struggling in a new city, in a new town. And Michelle said to me, come out to dinner with some of my girlfriends. It's cheaper than therapy. And I laughed. I thought, I'm into therapy too. Let's talk about this. So anyway, you've always been a great support. When is it, how long ago, that you discovered that you were having issues? And did you know what it was right away?
Oh, that's a good question. I've been struggling with PTSD and mental health probably since I was the age of 12. And did I know it at the time? No, I had no idea. I didn't recognize it until I was probably in my 30s when I had started my career.
Wow. So was it a feeling? Was it did you know what it was, or did you just know that something was off?
I actually never knew anything was off. I just thought my anger and my frustration and my constant tense shoulders and my migraines, that was just normal life. And then I got to a point where work was really intense, and they had to take me aside and say, hey, you're having some sort of issue. You need to go take care of it, or you can no longer work here.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that is huge, especially for a woman like you. You are one of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life. You're also one of the most successful women that I know. So they told you that you weren't going to be able to work there anymore. How did that feel?
At the time, gosh, I don't even know. How did it feel? I mean, it was a slap in the face, kind of, because I'm such a hard worker, to your point, and I've busted my butt for this company for years, and to be like, have everything taken away from me. At first you don't know what to make of it. But then you start talking to family and friends about, hey, this is a situation that I'm going through at work. And they said, well, maybe this is an opportunity. Don't see it as, this is something you're not going to succeed at. Maybe this is an opportunity for you to reflect back and to go explore what is causing these issues. And so actually, as frustrated as I was at the time, I'm so grateful and thankful now for them to have stood up and said, hey, you've got to go get this in check. It actually saved my life.
Oh my goodness. So you were very distraught by the whole thing. You didn't know, you were spinning. You didn't know what you were going to do. Oftentimes, isn't it the truth? When we go through something so devastating like that, we do end up better for it inside out. And I know it's so hard to believe it at the time. I mean, there's been times in my life where I've made myself physically sick worrying about stupid, you know, and eventually, like the place I am now in my life, and I know the place you are with your life, we're now talking about things like this so we can help other women with it so that they can see that there are good things to come. So when your family and your friends said to you, this is a good time for you to take a moment and reflect, you could have gone a couple different directions, right?
Mhm.
You're dealing with anger. So you could have said, goodbye, I'm going to go find my own way. Or you could have, contemplated doing a number of things, but instead you said, no, I'm going to find some help. So how does that happen? What did it look like?
Yeah, at first I happened to be in a relationship at the same time, and at first it was like, we need to go to couples counseling together, right? Let's work on our relationship. Maybe that's the problem, right? Maybe I'm just in a bad relationship or I'm not thinking about it correctly. And I was probably in therapy probably about 4 or 5 months, 6 months. And my therapist one day looked at me and said, what is really wrong? And then I broke down and I started talking about some childhood trauma that I've had and then, he finally diagnosed me with PTSD. So it wasn't technically about the relationship that I was in. It actually stemmed from this PTSD that I had from being a kid and having some childhood trauma that I never dealt with. And it was debilitating at the time, but I did a lot of work for sure
Yeah. So it manifested as anger in another direction. This
yeah,
is
the more
another really important reason to get into therapy if you are having an issue that people validate is true and real around you. And you have to take a look at that in order to grow, right? I always think about it like a little bud bursting on a tree, right? Like it's there's that tension, there's that turmoil, and then poof, there's this flower, right? There's this something of beauty that comes out of this. So, that is, wow, how strong of you. So it took a number of months of therapy. What
yeah.
happened to the boyfriend? Did the boyfriend go by the wayside at the time?
No. My therapist is like, if you're gonna go down this road to get healthy, you guys are no longer gonna be together. And of course, at the time, you're like, nah, that's not true. But he was 100% right, because you choose people when you're in, when you had trauma, you choose people that sort of repeat that trauma pattern, right? So
Yes.
you're choosing people that are going to do the things that you expect them to do, and usually it's not the right thing. So
Right.
you have to break that cycle, and that's part of the therapy and going through the motions. They don't even believe in it. They think you're weak, but you're not weak. You're just doing the right thing for your body. Your brain is just like if you broke your arm, right? You'd go to the doctor. So what's the difference if you have a brain injury or versus a physical arm injury or something?
Okay.
Kind of had to be, if you're going to be with me, you kind of have to understand how I, operate, and what's going to be the triggers, and what are the tools that both of us can work together on and move forward.
What kinds of things are triggers? I'm just curious. Like, what kinds of things for you will upset you?
Well, in the past, it was, stress. The more stress I took on, and you'll see this with a lot of people, it's not just me. The more stress you take on, the higher anxiety gets, the more you get out of control. And so
Mhm.
that was my biggest trigger, was taking on stress. And I also, my other problem is men. I have trust issues with men and stuff, but
Which makes total sense. Yeah.
right,
But
exactly.
what doesn't make sense to me is if stress is your trigger, your whole life is about stress. I mean, your whole job, so what do? You compartmentalize? Like when you step into a work situation, are you just kind of turn that part off?
The
Or
meditation has been really the
it
thing
helps?
helped. Yeah, I mean, if you go into things centered, I mean, I'm older now too. I've been in therapy 15 years. The EMDR, now that I desensitized myself to a lot of stuff, and then the the um, the the meditation, I'm centered or grounded when I come into it. So it's different. I'm not reeling and chaotic before I start. I'm
Mhm.
centered around, and then you can sort of, plus I have a really great team that works for me now. So
That's
yeah,
good. Now, people use these terms and they throw them around without really fully understanding what they're saying. Like, I had a friend say to me one day, "Oh, that's just my OCD." Well, she has never been diagnosed as OCD, doesn't really know what it is. I know somebody else who says well, I'm just ADHD. Are you though? Are you really ADHD? So, what is post-traumatic stress disorder? What is it?
yeah. So you have some sort of trauma that happens to you at some point in your life, and it could be different for everybody, right? And it could be something simple like, you fell and broke your leg one time. It could be childhood trauma, like I said. You could be in a war if you're a veteran. There's different things that, could cause this trauma, but it basically, that situation gets stuck in your frontal lobe, and you start, and because
Reliving?
well, you start reacting to situations as if you're in that situation again. So as my stress started to get worse and worse at work, and I started to take on more responsibility, anytime somebody was coming at me with, a challenge, I was coming at them as if that trauma was happening again. So because
Interesting.
I wasn't processing that trauma correctly, I was coming at every incident that was coming at me as if that trauma was happening again, over and over and over again, because I hadn't processed it.
What I find so interesting about that, knowing you so well, is you are a very laid back individual to me. And people
Not
say the same thing to me. What? Not at first.
Now
No.
say
Well,
that.
at first there were boundaries, right?
Yeah, right.
And that's fine. Michelle was running our association at a place that I was living, and she had rules on when you should contact her and when you shouldn't, and all of that. And I respect those boundaries. And you know what? That is something I admire about you, is that you're much better at putting up boundaries than I am. But aside from all that, you're very laid back. You're very calm. Like, if I were going to be going through something where the world was blowing up around me, I would want you right there next to me, because I would know you would keep a level head. So how do you get to that place from being explosive to being so controlled? How long has it been that you've been working on it?
So that's a really good question. I've been in therapy probably about 15 plus years at this point, but there are actually two things that I've done for myself that have been life-changing. One of those things through therapy, I've done, it's called EMDR. So EMDR, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a show.
No.
There's a show on, I think, Netflix or Hulu that Oprah and Prince Harry did, and he actually talks about his EMDR. So EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So basically what it is you have your counselor, your therapist, they move either their fingers back and forth and your eyes follow them, or they'll have a light bar that you can follow, or from a Zoom perspective, you can actually tap your legs back and forth. And so it actually allows you to process what is in your frontal lobe, and then that will sort of process and then move to the back and then move out. So it's basically a way to process the trauma. Now, what is interesting about EMDR is once you start to process the first trauma, what you realize is there may be other traumas that are behind it that have occurred that you'll have to maybe work through. So that was besides therapy, that was the biggest impact in my life.
And so you're actually physically reprogramming your brain and the way that it processes negativity, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it reprograms how you deal with situations. So instead of, if you were coming at me with a question, I wouldn't be like coming at you as if I was dealing with my trauma. I'm just listening to the words you're saying. So it's completely different. The third thing that I've done to myself, and why you say that I'm Zen, is that I went and learned how to do transcendental meditation about 5 to 6 years ago. I invested in that. And I have to tell you, because I didn't want to be on medication for my mental health. I had tried it. I didn't like it. But I can tell you, for me, meditation has been a game changer. And I've done it probably
Wow.
5 years, 6 years now.
So you professionally learned how to do this. Where did you go? Who taught this
Yeah,
technique?
I do. I looked up transcendental meditation. So at least in the area that I am, they were offering classes, and I actually invested in the class.
Wow. Wow. And it's helped you a lot. How often do you meditate? How
I'm
often do you?
every day in the morning for 20 minutes. You're supposed to do it twice a day for 20 minutes. I do it once, but I can tell you it's life changing.
That's how I start my day, Michelle. We've never talked about this before, but I start in just a simple meditation. I've never been trained. It's just something I do before my feet ever hit the floor in the well, after I go to the bathroom and then go back to bed, before my
Yeah,
feet hit the floor for the second time in the morning.
right,
But it
right,
has also been extremely helpful for me. I have difficulties with anxiety, and I know PTSD and anxiety sometimes, they're intertwined, and I have found that to be very helpful for me as well. So this is eye-opening to me because I didn't realize, I mean, you hear about childhood trauma and you hear about PTSD, but I didn't realize that one could be the result of the other. And so when you're going through life, like, you were smart enough to listen to the cues from your friends and your family, and you got, hit in the head with losing the job. So that was your wake up call. But
right.
what types of things should people think to themselves, I need to go see a therapist? When do you make that call?
I think, checking in on your mental health on an annual basis or even a monthly basis, like just reassess. If as we take on more stress, to think about, or I guess, notice how you're reacting to it, right? If you're reacting to it in a way that you're combative, or you're overwhelmed, or you're feeling like you can't breathe, or you need to medicate it in some way, shape, or form. There's been moments in my life where I start drinking too much, right? And how do you and it's been many years since that happened, but make sure that if you're self-medicating, if you're thinking about, I need to drink more, I need to take medication, or I need to try to mask whatever is happening to me, I think it's probably time to check in.
Right. Like, if maybe it's even food, maybe you're eating
Yeah,
incorrectly, or you're eating chocolate, or whatever it is you're doing. If you know that it's not healthy for you or the way you want to go and you need help, there's always somebody there. So in searching for a counselor, how does a person go through that? What do you do?
yeah. I mean, for me, it was going through my insurance first. So I started with my insurance. A simple thing you can do. You can go online, you can call, and they should be able to give you some names of some people that will, you can reach out to, that will take your insurance. So that for me was the easiest, simple step. Friends, family, I mean, talk to people. I mean, I know a lot of people are embarrassed about admitting that they have a problem. And I know that's the hardest part of this whole thing, is admitting that you have a problem. And once you admit you have a problem, then you can move on, right? And then if you start talking to other people about, what's their situation, what are they doing, you'll find that a lot of people are in the same situation. And so you can get a lot of information and tips from other people, and then also names and therapists. I mean, the thing that is really hard right now, I'll be honest, with the pandemic, is that there is a lot of need for therapists and coaches and counselors. So it is slightly hard to get in, but again, I think your insurance, and I think friends and family and recommendations are the best way, at least for me.
Is there any, like, groups like there is for AA or for NA or any of those types of 12-step groups?
Yeah,
Is there anything like that for PTSD?
absolutely, absolutely. And I think you could even reach out to the hospitals and stuff to see if there's any of those groups. So, yeah, absolutely. Those are in your area. I mean, and probably a Google search can probably find some of those things.
Yeah, I would think that would be helpful. Well, there should be plenty of information out there, at least for the month of June, right? Plenty of ways for people to get the information and the help that they need. But you're right, with the pandemic and with what everybody's been going through, not only is there a higher need, but there's, some things that are coming out sideways just because we've been with ourselves, listening to ourselves for a year now. So
Yeah.
suddenly you're like, hey, self, I don't like the way you're talking to me, right?
Right.
I'm gonna go find somebody that likes the way that I
Right.
am. And anyway, it's just taking that initiative and doing it. I give you so much credit for the courage that you have in doing this today. I mean, I didn't even really have to nudge you that much when I called you. You were like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then she was like, "Well, I don't know." And I said, "Tuesday." You go, "All right, Tuesday. We'll do it on
Yeah.
Tuesday." So I really appreciate you stepping forward. If you were going to leave everybody with a couple of little golden nuggets about, what to expect, or, just to validate how they're feeling, what would you say?
Yeah. Well, from an expectation standpoint, it's not easy. It is not easy. It's not easy admitting that you have a problem. There are bumps along the way when you go through therapy, but it is all worth it when you come out the other side. The clarity that you have, the calm that you experience, you know, it's all of it's worth it, right? There are many ways that probably people could deal with these things, and drugs, alcohol, suicide. It's not worth it. I mean, you can come through it and be okay on the other side. You just have to take that first step.
Yeah,
So
but being okay is far from where you are. Again, so proud of you. Michelle is a superstar in her industry. She is constantly on the move. I love how you give back to other people. I love she fosters or has in the past fostered 70 animals, something like that. I mean, you're
Mhm.
incredible. The giving side of you is just really something. I didn't know you before you were diagnosed and before you've done the work, but I sure love you now. So thank you so much.
Love
You
too.
are solid gold. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on You Are Solid Gold. We hope that you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Would you please subscribe, like, and share this episode? If you know of a person, place, or thing that is a hidden gem that we should feature on Solid Gold with Michele Lau, please submit it for consideration at hello@youaresolidgold.com. Now, get out there and shine.